subscribe, yeah! How you doing, guys? Big Mac Dan School here again today, back once again with another look at the new issue of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest magazine. It's issue 4. So, to start off, as I always seem to do, let's contemplate the value of issue 4. Your miniatures, you can quantify this in monetary terms. Why am I using words like that? Anyway, you can add this up, the cost of these. Yeah, so your Poxwalkers that you get in there, they're £10, the easy to build Poxwalkers. You get 6 of them on the frame, and there's a pot of Bugman's gold paint as well, which I think is £2.55. So you're looking at £12.55 if you were to buy them directly from Games Workshop, which is you know, some people would say it's a bit expensive for what these miniatures are, but there we go. Anyway, you're getting the magazine for the usual price of £7.99. So it's pretty good value still, I'd say, when you compare it to what you say £4.50 effectively, thereabouts. Let's continue looking at the magazine. This one's an interesting one, I think. The first page is all about the Poxwalkers, which you'd expect it to be because they're the miniatures you get in there. It explains what the Poxwalkers are. They are just masses of humans that are infected with Nurgle's various plagues. And then it gives you a nice image of some really well painted Poxwalkers, but unfortunately you've not got the paints to paint them like that at the minute. I'll talk about painting them further on into the issue. Then, interestingly, it's got this little section, Colours of Contagion, which I really quite like. It gives you a brief insight into some of the various vectorums of the Death Guard. So the various vectorums, it's kind of like chapters in Space Marines, basically. I think the way, in the Horus Heresy, I think the way that the legions were divided was into chapters. So the Black Templars are a chapter of the Imperial Fists. And these, although they wouldn't have had these names during the pre-heresy era of the Warhammer 40,000 lore and background, these are basically some of the divisions potentially, and some of the chapters, the older chapters of the Death Guard, brought into the 41st millennium with new names and more relating to Nurgle and their affliction or gifts that Nurgle's given them. So the Tainted Sons, the Fecund Ones, the Putrid Choir, the Glooming Lords, Apostles of Contagion, and the Weeping Legion. And then it gives you a brief description of the sort of tactics they employ on the battlefield. It's a nice little bit of fluff. And if you want to just do something other than your standard Death Guard, which I think, judging by the paint scheme, would be Tainted Sons, maybe I'm wrong there, maybe they're just Death Guard, and then Tainted Sons are an offshoot. But judging by that paint scheme, that's your basic Death Guard. If you want to do something different, then you've got 5 more choices, but it means you have to go into Games Workshop and buy these paints separately because you've not got enough paints to buy. You've not got enough paints to paint up all of these different vectorums. The one I'll be doing, I think I've decided now, is this one, which is Apostles of Contagion. Now, me being an experienced hobbyist and not someone that's new to the hobby, who this magazine is targeted at, me being an experienced hobbyist, I've got lots of paints already, so I'll do this scheme using Rakarth Flesh and Seraphim Sapia washes and some gold and some Nihilak oxide, is it? The oxidised copper sort of effect paint, technical paint that Games Workshop have. So yeah, it's a nice little thing that they're giving you different ways to paint your miniatures. But it's just unfortunate. A lot of people with this magazine won't necessarily have the paints in order to attempt to paint the miniatures this way. And also, they've not given you the guide to paint them this way, so it's just it's showing you what varieties in the background of 40k, and giving you a few options if you want to go out and buy some extra paints, basically. And then on to the how to build section of the magazine, which is the same as always, really. Interestingly, well, not particularly interestingly, but you'll notice there's no names on the instructions pages this time, which for me is quite good, because the Popswalkers are supposed to be the unnamed, untamed masses, if you like. You know, they're just like nameless zombies walking around, essentially, trying to kill and corrupt other beings on the battlefield. So it's quite fitting that they don't have names. And then on to the paints. So you'll have 6 paints now if you've got every issue of this magazine. You'll have Abaddon Black, Leadbelcher, Bugman's Glow, Death Guard Green, Macragge Blue and Retributor Armour, which is a nice little paint collection to get you started. And turning the page over, they go about painting the Poxwalkers, and they paint them in the Death Guard Green as your base coat, which is what they've done for the Death Guard, which is fair enough. It'll give you a nice unified force. Interestingly though, they don't paint all the flesh on the Poxwalkers with Bugman's Glow. They paint it with Death Guard Green mostly, and the only bits they paint with Bugman's Glow is the tentacles and some of the growths, the pustules and stuff like that on the Poxwalkers. But surprisingly, it surprised me anyway, it may not surprise you, it gives you a really good result at the end. They talk about where you should paint a black and some of the other colours as well. But if you look closely at this picture here, if I can make sure the light doesn't shine on it too much, look closely at that picture there, it's an alright paint scheme, I'd say it is anyway. They've got blue on the cloth and the trousers, the clothes of the Poxwalkers, giving you sort of a denim effect, basically. The leather's all black, the bone and the antlers and stuff that they're sprouting are all black, and it gives you a quite nice, for the number of paints you've got, gives you a quite nice effect, I'd say. And then obviously it talks about painting your Bugman's Glow onto the miniatures you've already got as well, some of the Space Marine miniatures. They've only got a little bit of exposed flesh, only 2 of the Space Marine miniatures you've got anyway, so it covers all of them there. Amazing. It covers the Reaver Sergeant and the Intercessor Sergeant. Then onto the rules updates. I suspected, after reviewing last week's issue 3, knowing what was coming this week, the Poxwalkers, I suspected they'd introduce the idea of squad warfare, because the playmat that you get, it's quite a small size. So to have individual warriors, individual models moving around, it could become quite confused and hectic, the battlefield, quite quickly, I would have thought. So this week they have introduced squad warfare. Way, squad warfare! Amazing. Gives you a nice little bit of lore. I'll let you read that yourselves if you get in a magazine. It's just, I'll give you a brief overview though as well. But it's basically the Death Guard have shot harpoons into the Space Marine strike cruiser, I think it is. Yeah, the strike cruiser Honor of Ultramar, and the ships are sort of caught together at the minute, and there's a massive boarding action going on. And the Space Marines have got to try and repel the boarding action yet again, which is it's the theme of each of the squad warfare sections, but it's an ongoing thing. So each time it gets a bit more dire, shall we say, for the Ultramarines, and they've got to try and get rid of the Death Guard and the Poxwalkers. Then it talks about what you'll need, same as it always does. Then it gives you the stats for the Space Marines first. The Intercessors this time do have a combat stat. It tells you how many attacks they get. They get 2 attacks. It tells you they're still using the to wound instead of a wound table, which they do in regular 40k. Oh, you'll notice it's just peeled apart there. Here's an interesting fact for you. This magazine, I believe, I've not actually seen a video where somebody complained about it myself, but I believe these magazines, people have been complaining that they peel apart that easily. But the whole idea of them is that they're supposed to peel apart so they're easy to put into a binder, and you don't have to tear the pages apart. Because once they're in the binder, you'll be wanting to turn the pages all separately, because you've got to go over the rings in the middle, haven't they? So they're designed to be like that. But continuing with the rules, so the Intercessors have all of the stats now. They didn't have the stats in the last issue because the Reavers were being introduced, and the close combat stats, or the rules section in the last issue only featured the Reavers and the Death Guard Plague Marines. So, now the Intercessors have the close combat stats. You've got the stats for the Poxwalkers, ballistic skill, weapon skill, same as the others. It's got to wound shooting, which is a dash because they don't have any shooting weapons anyway. Despite the fact that they have a ballistic skill, interestingly. And then, of course, it's got the extra rules, and it says both players read this. Poxwalkers are not as tough as Plague Marines. As such, both Intercessors and Reavers change their to wound shooting and to wound close combat to a 3+ when attacking Poxwalkers. Poxwalkers have no armour, but have a 5+ disgusting resilience save, just like the Plague Marines. It's basically giving you the stat line for 40k of the Poxwalkers there. And again, you'll notice it says the to wound rolls. I'm going to be interested to see when they actually introduce the to wound table or to wound chart, if they actually do. Because to me, it's close to being right, but it's not quite right, because they're not talking about strength of weapons or anything like that here. So I would have thought by issue 20, issue 30 maybe, there's 80 issues altogether. I would like to hope by issue 20 or 30 we'll have the proper rules introduced, rather than using these data sheets, which they're okay, they do for the time being, and they give you an idea of how to move your units around the battlefield and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting to see when they do actually introduce what I see as the more correct rules for 40k. On the next few pages, it basically talks you through the idea of unit coherency, and you now have to shoot as a unit into a single unit rather than shoot as an individual model into an individual model. Which I'm pretty sure it says that actually. It's just occurred to me. In 40k now you can split fire, can't you? So that's quite interesting. But this, I think, says you have to shoot into a single unit. Let's see. Yeah, so I think at this stage they don't want to overcomplicate things, so they're saying you just pick an enemy unit to shoot at, and you shoot as a unit. So I don't think you can split fire in the rules as they're introducing them. Again, it'll be interesting to see when they get a little more complex with the rules and say you can split fire. I would have thought probably it won't even be as far as it'd be maybe issue 10 or something like that, but who knows, we shall wait and see, really. And then it's onto the charge phase, so they've got the full, more or less the full battle rounds now, they've just not got the psychic phase. Then it talks about the fight phase and piling in. It talks about the way you have to maintain unit coherency, and the way a single model from your unit has to go into combat. It introduces all those rules for you. And then it's the last page there. So they give you the narrative back rep that they like to give you at the end, which again I quite like that. So it gives you a brief introduction to the rules, a few scenarios, a few picture scenarios where two hypothetical players are playing against each other to explain the rules further, and then onto the back rep. Well, then that's the last page, and then it says subscribe, yay! Which I have done now. I have gone for the premium subscription, and it says allow up to 28 days for delivery, which is frustrating. But we'll see. We'll see when I get it. I'm hoping I'll get it by next issue. You get this fella in the next issue, Lieutenant Calcius. Looking at this picture, it definitely looks like the Ultramarine symbols are embossed on there, and you can see the one on the sword, like I mentioned in the previous video I did. So I'm going to have to shave them off. If my delivery isn't here by next week, which I'm assuming it won't be, I have requested at the newsagents for them to get issue 5 in for me, and then I'll pick that up there. Hopefully my issue will then arrive by the following week, which you get Plague Marines in. Some people aren't happy that you're getting a duplicate so early in the run of the magazine, which I completely understand. They could have introduced a Death Guard character, because there's plenty of Death Guard characters to introduce, so they could have introduced one of them just to give the Death Guard side a boost. If they're introducing, I would have thought with the Lieutenant Calcius miniature, they'll introduce some rules, the sort of halo effect rule. If a unit's within 6 inches of Calcius, they can do certain things. I would have thought they're going to introduce something like that, but I won't know until next issue. It's a nice looking miniature, the Calcius one, like I've said in the past, but I'll be swapping his head out probably for a helmeted head. Maybe, maybe not. I might swap it out for a different head though, with hair that I prefer. The haircut's a bit Vulcan for me. It's just a bit like simple Roman. I like a Jimmy Neutron kind of look. Not Jimmy Neutron kind of look, but you know, something more similar to Rogel Dawn. Not all Imperial Fists have to look like Rogel Dawn. I have to get that into my head, don't I? What's wrong with me? Anyway, yeah, so let me know what you think of the issue. Have you got the issue already? I would have thought some of you out there have. And why would you be watching this video if you've got the issue already, you lunatics? You must just want something on in the background while you do a bit of hobby, while you get your Poxwalkers built, obviously. Yeah, so it's this one's... I went through this issue really quick, but when you actually look at the content in there, there's a lot of rules content, and there is a little bit of fluff content as well, a good couple of pages, about 4 or 5 pages of fluff content, which I appreciate. Let me know what you think of the issue, if you've got it already, in the comments below. And will you be subscribing? I'm hoping you hear about the horror stories that Hatchet Parkworks, that people have had with Hatchet Parkworks, and they don't give you refunds, and they don't send the miniatures, they don't send the magazines out on time and stuff like that. I'm hoping I have a good experience with them, because for every bad review someone does, for every bad experience, typically this is in retail, for every bad experience someone has in retail, they talk about that bad experience. They tend to anyway. There are probably 100, if not 1,000, good experiences people have had, or just like experiences where it's met expectations. So I'm hoping I'm one of those ones that it meets expectations. If my expectations are to receive the magazines on time, to not have any issues with getting refunds or anything like that. So I'm hoping my experience goes well with Hatchet Parkworks. I've gone for the premium subscription, and I'm going to hopefully be glad I've gone for that. You get 4 battle mats throughout the subscription, and it's going to be interesting to see what size of battle mat you get, because in the picture it looks like it's going to be the kill team size battle mat, and if it's that, it'll be very disappointing for the extra money you're paying. It's £120 over the course of the subscription. So if that's all you get, plus the you get some tokens, Ultramarine tokens in the first one, by the looks of it, in the first delivery. If that's all you get, then after the first delivery I may be tempted to just drop that down to the standard subscription, but we'll see. I'll let you know how I get on. It's a long way off that first delivery of the premium box. I think it's going to be the 4th delivery, so in 4 months' time, and then it's every 5 deliveries thereafter where you get a premium Wargear box. But yeah, I'll let you know how I get on when that actually comes, and hopefully I'll get the next issue on time, but if not, I'll have 2 of the next issue. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the battlefield.